A couple of more long-term causes here, and then we'll talk about the short-term origins of the war. The Schlieffen Plan has to be regarded as a long-term cause. Alfred von Schlieffen was head of the Prussian General Staff, and he was given the task of devising a war plan whereby Germany could be victorious in a two-front war. Germany knew quite well that France and Russia had an alliance, and thereby Germany would face, if she found herself embroiled in a war with France, she knew she'd be attacked in the east by Russia. And vice versa, if she found herself at war with Russia, she realized she would be attacked in the west by France. So how do you win a two-front war? Here, Germany looks like a pecan in a nutcracker, surrounded east and west by two great powers. Von Schlieffen said that of the two enemies that Germany has, the French are by far the most dangerous. Again, France is a modern country. She can mobilize her forces quickly. She can get her armies to the frontier much quicker than the Russians. Schlieffen said that the Russians will take a month to get their act together, thereby giving Germany time to smash France in a rapid campaign whereby something like 9/10 of the German army would mobilize in the west, sweep through the Low Countries, across part of the Netherlands and Belgium, and then into France. These German armies would sweep west and south of Paris, capturing the capital, and then pinning the French armies on the frontier and crushing them. I think von Schlieffen said this would take approximately a month to carry out. And then, of course, at the conclusion of this campaign, all those millions of German troops could be transferred to the Eastern Front to then crush the Russians. Now, of course, von Schlieffen's plan calls for the German army to cross the Belgium frontier. This leads us to the next long-term cause, and that is the relationship between Belgium and Great Britain. Belgium is a small neutral country. You notice it's on the English Channel. The British were instrumental in creating this country after the Napoleonic Wars. It gives the British a safe place to land its armies on the continent if it's ever necessary to do so again. It also works as something of a buffer between France and Germany. The English guarantee Belgium's neutrality. So if Belgium is attacked by anyone, Britain is pledged to come to her aid. And you'll notice that the Schlieffen Plan calls for a large portion of the German invading forces to cross the Belgian frontier. So this is obviously going to bring complications very shortly. Now, I want to say one more word here about the British, and that is another long-term cause. Let's call it Germany's new course. And this takes us to Kaiser Wilhelm II, the leader of Germany. I think of the Kaiser as a sort of overgrown 12-year-old. He dresses in all his different military uniforms. I can picture him in the bathtub sinking ships and playing naval battles in the tub. He's kind of, he's a bit erratic, he's impulsive, he makes everybody nervous, he sticks Germany's nose where it does not belong. And what did they call him? A saber rattler, as if he's about to draw his sword all the time. Well, the Kaiser looks across the North Sea and sees that the English have a great navy. And of course, the British naval policy, I believe, was to maintain naval forces naval forces capable of defeating the next two navies combined. Great Britain's obviously an island, so she depends on her navy and her merchant marine. I think the Kaiser sees the great British Navy and he wants one of his own. And he begins to build a battleship navy right there within sight of the British. Again, this makes the British nervous and is one of the factors that push the British into the arms of the French, their traditional enemies. Another thing that we have to discuss briefly as a long-term cause of the war is the Balkans. By 1914, the traditional or the dominant power in the Balkans has been significantly weakened, and this is the Ottoman Empire. By 1914, Ottoman power in the Balkans has been pushed further and further south and east. so that Ottoman power is now practically been pushed back into Turkey. This leaves a political vacuum in the Balkans, and there the small state of Serbia, a Slavic country, has great ambitions to create what would eventually emerge after the war as Yugoslavia, a South Slavic state. There are a number of Slavs scattered about in the various countries there in the Balkans, and Serbia wants to incorporate all of them into a great Slavic state with herself at the center. Now, you'll notice that Serbia lies contiguous to the southern border of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and there are many, many Slavs living in the empire. This makes Vienna very nervous. You remember the threat of any ethnic group leaving the empire, the bad example that this would pose for the other ethnic groups. So Serbia's ambitions in the Balkans is going to be where this war is going to take off, because of Russia's support of Serbia and Austria-Hungary's suspicion and opposition to Serbia's ambitions. Let's take this one step further. Another long-term cause, and you can see it on the map that we've supplied you, is the annexation of Bosnia by the empire. This is 1908. The war will begin in 1914. So this is only 6 years prior to the outbreak of hostilities. Bosnia is one of those territories that the Serbs covet. Bosnia has hundreds of thousands of Slavic people, and the Serbs want that to be a part of their South Slavic empire. Well, the Austro-Hungarians preempt the Serbs by annexing Bosnia to the empire in 1908. This has the practical effect of enraging the Serbs while blocking their expansionist ambitions in the West. Having discussed the long-term causes of the war, we now have to talk about the short-term causes, and I want you to distinguish between these two. You might think of long-term causes as safely stored dynamite. Potentially dangerous, but as long as it's safely put away and protected, there should be no problem. You can think of short-term causes as the fuse for this dynamite, or somebody tossing a match into this safely stored dynamite. Long-term causes in and of themselves are not going to cause the war. Pan-Slavism is not a headline. The alliance system, the nationality problem in Austria-Hungary, Germany's new course, these are not headlines. These are not going to cause an eruption of nationalism in the various European countries. But short-term causes are headlines, and they will have an emotional impact on people. And these short-term causes will set off these longer-term causes. So let's go through these. It's June 28, 1914. The Archduke of Austria-Hungary, Francis Ferdinand, is traveling to Sarajevo in Bosnia. We just talked about the annexation of Bosnia. This is simply a diplomatic mission. They sent the Archduke there to show the flag, to demonstrate Austria-Hungary's determination to maintain Bosnia, keep it out of the grasp of Serbia. The Archduke is there with his wife Sophie, and you can see the pictures here. I've included a number of them. They meet with various officials there in Sarajevo. They leave one function and they're headed to another when an assassination attempt takes place. A bomb is thrown at the Archduke's car. I believe it bounces off the trunk and it explodes in the follow-up car, killing some of the Archduke's entourage, bodyguards and other people, or at least injuring them. This, of course, infuriates the Archduke. He feels grossly insulted by this. He determines, before going to his next stop, scheduled stop, that he's going to go to the hospital and visit his injured compatriots. On the way to this destination, I believe, I've heard this story a couple of different ways, I believe his driver, the Archduke's driver, makes a wrong turn. And realizing that he's pulled into a cul-de-sac, he backs the limo back out onto the main highway. And as he starts to go forward again, a young Serbian assassin, Gavrilo Princip, steps up on the running board of the car and bang, bang, kills the Archduke and Sophie. There were apparently Serbian assassins throughout the city. Like I said, there was one attempt earlier, a bombing attempt, that did not kill the Archduke. But now, by almost pure chance, this young Serbian assassin comes face to face with the Archduke and his wife, and he kills them. All right, the Archduke is not terribly loved by his countrymen. His own family holds him in some disregard. So how are we going to react to this back in Vienna? How is Austria-Hungary going to react to this provocation? Very soon, the powers that be decide that this may give Austria-Hungary the opportunity to solve all their problems with Serbia. Serbia has provoked us. She's killed the Archduke, a member of the royal family, heir to the Habsburg Empire. And this gives us an opportunity to settle our affairs with Serbia. So, about a month later, 23rd of July, an ultimatum is delivered to the Serbians from Vienna. And of course, the ultimatum lists a number of demands, one of them being that Serbia will essentially have to surrender her sovereignty and become part of the empire. This the Serbs refused to do. As a result of this refusal, on the 28th of July, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Now, knowing what you know about the long-term causes of the Great War, you can begin to predict what's going to happen. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. So quite naturally, Russia begins to mobilize her forces to protect Serbia. Russia mobilizes its forces along its border with the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Now, the Kaiser, Wilhelm II, I believe, is on vacation on his yacht in the North Sea. He gets word of this, heads back to Berlin, and he issues what historians have called the blank check. He assures Austria-Hungary that Germany will stand with her if she decides to crush Serbia. I don't know if you've ever received a blank check. It's a red letter day in your life. You'll never forget it. You know, somebody signs the check and then lets you fill in the dollar amount. Well, that's kind of what's happened here. Germany has Austria-Hungary's back. Well, the Kaiser and the German general staff are very worried now that Russia is mobilizing against their ally, Austria-Hungary. So, Kaiser Wilhelm and the Tsar of the Russians, Nicholas II, these two, of course, are cousins. They refer to each other as Willie and Nicky. And they begin sending telegrams back and forth. The Kaiser telling Nicky, "Dear Nicky, you must stop this mobilization. This is dangerous." Nicky telegraphing back to the Kaiser, "Dear Willie, my generals tell me that it would be dangerous if I stop the mobilization. Once we start, it will throw all of our schedules into chaos." This sort of tragic comedy goes on between these two leaders of Germany and Russia. The net result being that Germany will declare war on Russia on August the 1st, 1914. This, of course, is to ostensibly protect Germany's ally, Austria-Hungary. And of course, Russia mobilized to protect her little Slavic ally, Serbia. So you can see this is a very tangled thread. Now, think again about the long-term causes of the war. Germany declares war on Russia, but then who does she invade? She doesn't invade Russia. She follows the Schlieffen Plan, which requires German armies to invade France. France, of course, being an ally of Russia. When Germany crosses the frontier into Belgium, whose neutrality is protected by Great Britain is now going to declare war on Germany. So you've taken a small, local conflict deep in the Balkans, in a place where most people have never heard of and could not find on a map if they had to. You've taken this small, local conflict, and because of these long-term causes, Pan-Slavism, nationalism, the Schlieffen Plan, the alliance system. You've taken a small local conflict and you have blown it up into a continental-wide war that will extend into a world war. Those are the short-term causes. When we get back, we'll talk about, we'll actually fight the war a bit, try to characterize it, and we'll do that next time. Thanks.